Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to the new America, new New York, Neo-London, Neo-Pakistan, some would even call it. This is Zoran Mamdani. He is running for the mayor of New York City. He is probably gonna win. He just gave a couple of speeches, and JD Vance got involved. This is one of the craziest videos I'm ever gonna be making, largely because, New York is about to become an Islamic country, and it's beautiful. Everyone loves Islamic communism. It's everyone's favorite type of thing. So lock in, boys and girl. Previously known as New York, this is what he had to say, and it started quite the drama.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City.
This was always the plan. Nux, is this video gonna be racist? Oh, yes. Yes. If you don't like racism, you should probably unsubscribe. This video is gonna be racist, but it's also gonna be correct.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt.
His aunt! What happened to her? Was she killed in a Muslim hate crime? He puts his hand to his nose to cry.
Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
No! No! I can't believe his aunt had to go through not feeling safe in her hijab in the New York subway after Muslims killed 3,000 people in the Twin Towers. So this clip's been making the works. This is, why was 9/11 bad? Zoran Mamdani's aunt. In tears, my aunt stopped taking the subway. Yes, the real victim of 9/11 was her aunt. Everyone keeps reminding me of this Norm Macdonald tweet. What terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. We are literally here. We are literally here. Oh my God. 9/11 happens. Terrorist lovers, aunt most affected. So this is going to be a very racist video. I warned you in advance. We are going to be talking about Islamophobia today. All right, listen, I'm sorry if I'm going to make enemies. I'm not making content to make friends. I want to make this very clear. My content is actually not to make friends. It is to actually rather make enemies. So lock in, boys and girls. We're about to have the deep dive of a lifetime. All right. 2,976 people stopped taking the subway after 9/11 because they were murdered. He didn't say the rest, but it's by Muslims. All right. This is not, I would like to talk to Muslims. 9/11 was truly horrible for us. Yeah, true. Yep, actually, absolutely, it was pretty horrible for you guys. But it was much worse for everybody else. I'm not gonna lie, it was worse for everybody else. So anyway, JD, Just Dance Vance, 48, Just Dance, never stop dancing, vancing. According to Zoran, the real victim of 9/11 was his auntie, who got some allegedly bad looks. True, Elon Musk. Wow, bro, the alliance is happening. The JD Vance Musk alliance. Oh my God. Deus Vult, ladies and gentlemen. We gotta recognize what's going on. Gotta recognize what's happening. All right, so I'm going to be covering a lot of pretty interesting stuff. All right, we are going to be covering some stuff. I did a crazy amount of research specifically for this video. Scott Jennings decided to cook, and let's see what Scott Jennings had to say.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt.
His aunt! While I still I think it's likely that he is going to win, that doesn't mean I am going to stop talking about this threat in our society that is very likely very excited to kill us all.
Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Today he has this press conference. I watched a chunk of it. I didn't hear any words for the victims of 9/11, but he found the real victim, his aunt.
Is he?
You know, the victims of 9/11 were in the Twin Towers. Those were the victims.
Is the implication here that he has to answer for the terrorists who attacked 9/11?
Bro! Thank you, black woman on CNN. I am so grateful you decided to flip it on the white man. I am so glad you decided to You're racist for being upset that he thinks the real victim of 9/11 is his aunt. Is he supposed to take accountability for the Muslim terrorists? Just because he's a Muslim? Wow. Wow. Just because he's a Muslim? I can't believe it. Now, let me tell you something. If he agrees with them, it's a problem. If you think that the main issue of 9/11 is the fact that there's now racism against Muslims, you're retarded.
No, I think if you're going to have if you're going to run for mayor of New York City, or have any position in New York City, and you're going to talk about 9/11 or invoke 9/11, you darn sure better start with the people who died in the Twin Towers.
Yeah, no
That's
shit.
what I think. And he didn't do that. And
also, let me make it incredibly clear, he literally campaigned with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker, who was literally viral for saying America deserved 9/11. He literally campaigned with the guy running 9/11 apologia.
kind of, he made it about his experience and his aunt and all this. My advice would be, if you're going to want to be the mayor of this town, and by the way, he's probably going to win. That moment in our history, you cannot lose sight of what happened. People died in those Twin Towers. They did not deserve to die.
3,000 people.
We did suffer a terrorist attack, and we can't really forget the moment. Making it about him and his family, okay, there were almost 3,000 people that died there.
Except the reality is it's not about him and his family. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud here. The quiet part out loud is he is trying to make believe that America was a worse evil than the Islamic terrorists that did 9/11 because the wars that happened that took place as a result of 9/11 killed more Muslims. That's his mindset. It's almost like he's the enemy, and that's what I'm going to be proving to you in this video. He is the enemy, and he is part of an actual strategy to take over the United States.
It's a big deal. It is true. Mamdani, he has allied himself with certain people. A lot of the people that surround him, the people involved in this democratic socialist organization, I mean, they have said more than a handful of eyebrow-raising things when it comes to their views of America, their views of Jewish people, and so on and so forth. He knows that. He does align himself with them. He doesn't really distance himself.
Yeah, pretty weird. He doesn't distance himself from any of these things. It's almost like he actually agrees with them. No, but you can't say that because that's racist. It's racist and Islamophobic for you to notice that this guy kind of aligns himself with all the fucking communists that hate America. For the record, I'm a big fan of the Constitution. I'm also a big fan of the Communist Enforcement Act, where we deport and denaturalize communists. We don't need to tolerate these people here. We really don't. He's obviously here to destroy our country. He's made it very clear, celebrating the 9/11 fucking terrorists. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He didn't celebrate it. He didn't celebrate it. His aunt was a victim. Anyway, so Mehdi Hassan, another retard, decides to retweet JD Vance. Imagine being married to a brown woman, Indian, having mixed race kids, and then publicly mocking other brown people, Muslims, as they talk publicly and emotionally about their experience of racism. Vance is just a bad person. Or maybe Vance realizes that racism is cringe. It's cringe. And calling someone out for being like, well, the biggest victim of 9/11 was my aunt. That's fucking insane. That's crazy. And of course, Mehdi Hassan, another terrorist supporter, Muslim, wants to run defense for it. Now, again, I'm not being racist here because Islam isn't race, it's an ideology. And this guy's a radical freak that wants to destroy America from the inside. Mehdi Hassan coming out here with the all brown people are the same. For the record, JD Vance's wife, who is of Indian ethnicity, is a literal Christian woman. All right? She didn't convert to Islam. She converted to Christianity. So I'm not sure what your point is here. Anyway, in case you're curious, here's some old tweets. This is 9/11, 2020. Nearly 3,000 New Yorkers died in 9/11. 19 years later, the death hasn't stopped. We mourn our neighbors who died that day. Sure, the hundreds of thousands who died in wars that followed, the unknown millions injured and displaced. In their memory, we work towards a better world. 2021, nearly 3,000 New Yorkers died. We mourn our neighbors, blah, blah, blah. In the memory, better world, better world, better world. And he tweeted the same exact tweet on 2020, on 2021, 2022, 2023, essentially saying, yeah, sure, we do mourn the people that died after an Islamic terrorist attack. But is that really as bad as the poor Muslims that started the war by doing a terrorist attack? That's obviously so much worse, actually. Oh my god, this is insane! So I made this tweet, which I think is important. Zoran Mamdani, my aunt was the real victim of 9/11 because racism. Sure, I am sorry for Zoran's aunt that got dirty looks because of 9/11. I am more sorry for the 2,977 people murdered by Muslims on 9/11. I'm more sorry for the 33,000 injuries that were done by Muslims on 9/11. I'm more sorry for the 400,000 people suffering trauma to this day from an event caused by Muslims on 9/11. I'm more sorry for the 2,459 soldiers that died in Afghanistan, which was a response to the Muslim attack on 9/11. I am more sorry for the 4,492 soldiers that died in Iraq, which was a response to the Muslim attack on 9/11. I am more sorry to the estimated 50,000 injured soldiers and 700,000 soldiers suffering from PTSD in response to overseas conflict precipitated by the Muslim attack on 9/11. Now to think about it in context, I'm actually not that sorry for the dirty looks received by Zoran's aunt. In fact, I'm starting to think that this Zoran Mamdani guy might be fighting for the other side. Never forget, they said. They forgot. Definitely follow me on Twitter for more bangers. But no, that's how I feel, okay? Every single soldier suffering from PTSD that fought a war that was even loosely precipitated by 9/11, I feel worse for that guy who has PTSD fighting for his country against a threat. I feel worse for that guy than Zoran Mamdani's aunt who doesn't want to take a subway because she got dirty looks. Okay? That's the nuclear take of the day. All right? You've got to be kidding me with this garbage. And in fact, if you want to look, here are the actual stats, the breakdowns of all the wars and stuff that happened from 9/11. According to this, combining 9/11 direct deaths and post 9/11 wars, focusing on U.S. personnel and civilians, deaths were around 15 to 20,000. Injuries were around 60,000. Trauma was around 1 to 1.3 million. I feel bad for all of those people, every single one of them. And you know what? I feel worse for every single one of these people than for Zoran Mamdani's aunt who got dirty looks on a subway. All right? Because today we're bringing out the real shit. So this is Zoran Mamdani's closing pitch in his debate. I think it's pretty telling.
Cuomo laugh and agree when a radio show host said that I would cheer another 9/11, when I listened to the current mayor of this city explaining his decision to endorse Andrew Cuomo as a decision to ensure that New York City does not become Europe, that we do not leave it to violent extremists who burn churches in Nigeria.
Yeah.
When I listen to all of this and then turn on TV and see ads that have the words of terrorism and jihad on top of my face that not only mock the way that I eat, but are all intended
Because he eats rice with his bare hands, for the record.
to terrify New Yorkers as to the prospect of having a Muslim mayor, I decided that it was simply too much. It was too much to think of these as the acts of desperate men looking to salvage the little power that they still had. It was, in fact, a reflection of Islamophobia within our political system that has become so endemic that when we hear it, we do not know from which party it comes. We just know that it is a fact of life in our city's politics. And amidst all of this, the focus of so many is just how much bigotry they can engage in.
Yeah, I'm so happy I don't live in New York anymore. Bro, that's crazy. I hear people saying, what if he cheers 9/11? That's racism. I hear people saying, what if this becomes Europe? That's racism. You do realize it's literally just facts, right? Like, this dude did photo ops with people that supported 9/11. Like, why on earth would we think that he doesn't support it if he literally did photo ops, like, with people that supported 9/11, which I'm going to show you in a minute? And why would you think it wouldn't become Europe when he's literally running on the card of mass importing Muslims, like from third world countries? Literally, why are we not even remotely expecting this? He literally goes out there. He gave a speech to my Muslim friends. What do you fucking do? You're running for mayor to my Muslim friends? Dude made a song praising the leaders of Hamas before, by the way. Actual terrorists. You know, on 9/11, he made a video condemning Israel. Not 9/11. On October 7th, he made a video, like a post condemning Israel. Like, dude, he's literally runs defense for every terrorist on the block. And that's not the only one. Here, look at this sociopath shit.
I get messages that say the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim.
No! I get those messages too, okay? We all get those messages. We're public figures online, people shit on you. Stop being a bitch.
I get threats on my life, on the people that I love, and I try not to talk about it.
Clearly you don't try that hard.
Because the function of racism is
I'm telling you, man, this guy is literally running for foreigners because he wants to, you know, protect foreigners and illegals and import more foreigners. So he's running on the card of foreigners and suicidal empaths.
Morrison said is distraction. My focus has always been on making this a city that's affordable, on making this a city that every New Yorker sees themselves in. And
unless you're white, because he's taxing white people more than any other people.
It takes a toll.
This man literally cried and woked his way all the way to the top.
Because this is a city that every single person deserves to be in. It's a city that we all...
Literally no one deserves to be anywhere. All right, shut up with your entitlement bullshit.
And the thing that's making me proudest in this campaign, I get messages.
Yeah. Anyway, more crocodile tears. More crocodile tears. All right, if you want some more crocodile tears, reality is, you think that Zohran Mamdani's aunt was the biggest victim of 9/11? You absolute buffoon. You see, the real victim of 9/11 was Zohran Mamdani himself.
These moments where I would be reminded by someone whose intent was to tell me that you do not belong. And one of those first moments was on 9/11, when, before I knew what had happened, my teacher had pulled me and a Muslim classmate of mine out of the class and told us that something has happened and you may be bullied. And I want you to tell me if that happens. And frankly, I was lucky because most Muslim students in the city were not given that kind of care from their teachers. And yet in that moment, I realized that I was not simply...
So essentially, they told him, hey, don't get hey, we're just warning you, you might get bullied. That sounds like a really nice thing to do.
another classmate in a middle school.
Yeah, this might be some of the lowest level suffering I've ever heard in my life, and I bet it didn't even happen. Come on, this didn't happen. Are you kidding me?
I was distinct, and there was a marker of that distinction on me.
Wow, racism. Oh my god, that's crazy how that happened or something. This guy sucks, dude. So, it turns out the biggest victim of 9/11 wasn't even his aunt, who was scared to ride a subway because of looks while she was wearing her hijab in New York City. But it was actually him! He was the biggest victim of 9/11, actually, it turns out. Dude, these people are manipulative fucking snakes, and people are buying it, man. So, he released a video to Muslims on Twitter yesterday. He decided to release this. It has 15 million views, so obviously it went super viral. This is his video that he's releasing to Muslims in America.
6 years ago, shortly after I had announced I was running for assembly, a well-meaning Muslim uncle pulled me aside. He smiled softly and looked at me with care. In a quiet voice, he told me I did not have to tell people I was Muslim.
Yeah, we know, because there's this thing called the taqiyya, which means Muslims are morally obligated to lie to people if it means you could further their agenda. We know that's literally part of Islamic culture. You are told by your prophet to lie to people.
His eyes kind, his beard proud, and his face heavy with the implication of the unsaid. I had not learned the lesson that he had been taught time and again. It is the lesson that safety could only be found in the shadows of our city, that it is in those shadows alone where Muslims could embrace the fullness of our own identities.
First of all, and let me make this clear, no one is buying this. Who is buying this, man? Who is watching this and actually believing this even a little bit? The shadows of society. This is literally New York, okay? This is literally New York, bro! Times Square, Manhattan. So you could kindly shut the hell up, man, okay? You're not living in the shadows of society. That is such obvious bullshit, man.
And that if we are to emerge from them, then it is in those shadows where we must leave our faith.
Literally not true.
These are lessons that so many Muslim New Yorkers have been taught again and again. And over these last few days, these are the lessons that have become the closing message of Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, and Eric Adams. Yesterday, Andrew Cuomo laughed and agreed when a radio show host said that I would cheer another 9/11.
I mean, you literally said that the biggest victim of 9/11 was your aunt. I don't know why anyone is surprised. I don't know why anyone would be... I agree, you probably would, sort of, in a way, be happy about 9/11. Just like you chanted globalize the Intifada and all that other terrorist shit. In case you were curious, Anwar al-Awlaki is one of the most senior al-Qaeda propagandists. Zoran referred to him as a critic of the state. Al-Awlaki inspired the 2005 London bombings, the Boston bombing, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, where 49 people were massacred at a gay club, and the Fort Hood shooting. And this is Zoran Mamdani saying, fascinating article on the Anwar al-Awlaki, but I take issue with a couple of things. Why no proper interrogation of what it means for FBI to conduct an expensive survey into al-Awlaki's private life? Why no further discussion of al-Awlaki's knowledge or survey? He's literally running defense for terrorism! Why are we surprised? Oh my god.
Yesterday, Eric Adams said that we can't let our city become Europe. He compared me to violent extremists.
You literally want to import the third world. That is what happened to Europe. He's right.
And he lied when he said that our movement seeks to burn churches and destroy communities.
I don't think your movement searches to burn churches, but I do think that the product will burn churches.
The day before that, Curtis Sliwa slandered me from a debate stage when he claimed that I supported global jihad. And
again, you refused to condemn the phrase globalize the Intifada, which literally means global jihad. So yes, in my opinion, you do support global jihad. All these things that he's claiming that they're slandering are just things that he refuses to condemn and he actually kind of secretly supports. It's kind of crazy.
Every day, Super PAC ads imply that I'm a terrorist or mock the way I eat.
I mean, first of all, you eat like an animal, so whatever. But people are allowed to mock the way you eat. That's called freedom of speech. I heard that you like that. But what are you talking about? What are you even talking about, dude? Slander? So sue them.
Push polls that ask New Yorkers questions like whether they support invented proposals to make halal mandatory.
I mean, but they're doing that in places in Europe where they allow this mass migration. Why wouldn't that happen in New York? Expect it.
Or political cartoons that represent my candidacy as an airplane hurtling towards the World Trade Center.
Last I checked, an airplane hurtled towards the World Trade Center, and your message was it affected your aunt more. Why would people not make fun of you for this? This is incredibly valid criticism.
But I do not want to use this moment to speak to them any further.
All these things happen, but I'm not going to mention them.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of the city.
All right.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th.
No! Easily the biggest victim.
Because she did not feel safe in her hijab. I want to speak to the Muslim city worker, whether they teach in our schools or walk the beat for the NYPD.
This guy is literally going to be the biggest psyop of all time. You're going to see he's not going to do any of his fucking social changes that he's promising that he's going to do. He's not going to do any of the social changes, and he's literally just going to be all about importing Muslims. Like, it's crazy.
New Yorkers who all make daily sacrifices on behalf
There are 285 Muslim mosques in New York, by the way.
of the city, only to see their leaders spit in their face. I want to speak to every child who grows up in New York marked as the other, who is randomly selected in a way that rarely feels random, who feels that they carry a stain that can never quite be cleaned. Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion. I will always remember the disdain.
Living in the shadow of 9/11, I know what it's like when brave soldiers go overseas to fight. Some die, some get injured, and some come back so mentally scarred that it ruins their life forever.
I faced, the way my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan of attacking it. And since I was very young, I have known that I was spared the worst of it.
Look, again, I think that it's really sad that there are a lot of innocent Muslims that have to go through this, obviously. I think it is really a sad thing. But realistically, I don't know. I know about a lot of religions. There's only one religion that has carried out 48,000 terrorist attacks since 9/11. And it's not Christianity, and it's not Judaism, it's not Hinduism, it's not Buddhism, it's not Taoism. But there is one specific religion that did cause 48,000 terrorist attacks since 9/11. Now, obviously, this isn't every Muslim, obviously, but it is the radical ones. So why are we, are we really freaking out?
I was never pressured to be an informant like a classmate of mine. I've never had the word terrorist spray painted on my garage as one of my staff had to endure. My mosque has never been set on fire. To be Muslim in New York is to expect indignity. But indignity does not make us distinct. There are many New Yorkers who face it. It is the tolerance of that indignity that does. Since I announced my candidacy for mayor 1 year ago yesterday, I've sought to be the candidate fighting for everyday New Yorkers, not simply the Muslim candidate.
Unless you're Jews or white, in which case, not him.
I've carried these indignities with me each moment of this race, doing so all the while as the first major Muslim candidate for mayor in New York City history. I thought that if I could build a campaign of universality, I could define myself as the leader I aspire to be.
He's saying the quieted part out loud. I thought that if I could just make a campaign that people will buy into, I could then push my agenda.
One representing every New Yorker, no matter their skin color or religion.
Unless you're Jews or white.
I thought if I worked hard enough.
You know, he literally has a plan where he wants to tax white neighborhoods up to 52% of their income. Only white neighborhoods, specifically. You know, he literally has that in writing.
It would allow me to be that leader. And I thought that if I behaved well enough or bit my tongue enough in the face of racist, baseless attacks while returning back to my...
I love how this dude keeps talking about how he held his tongue, but he literally has like 1,000 clips of him talking about how Islamophobia is ruining his life.
Central message. It would allow me to be more than just my faith. I was wrong. No amount of redirection is ever enough. In doing this, I have told the wide-eyed young...
Bro, if you would be a Muslim man that would go to your mosque to pray, okay? But you would also come out and condemn Islamic terror, then people wouldn't be this freaked out. I'm gonna be real. People wouldn't be this freaked out, you know? Like, I have a friend who's a Muslim guy, not radical at all, and he condemns every terrorist attack. He absolutely hates it. He absolutely hates it. Like, if you would actually go out there and be like, yeah, actually, the terrorist attack on Israel October 7th was a terrible, awful thing, condemn it totally. And 9/11 was an absolute nightmare, my heart goes out to all the victims. You know, that would change things. If people would ask you about globalize the Intifada and you would say that's completely and utterly unacceptable, we're not barbarian, savage, radical fucks. You know, people would look at you maybe differently. But, well, no, actually. Actually, no. What do we do? No, but he doesn't do any of that. People aren't saying it's not just because you're Muslim. It's because you're Muslim and happen to support every Muslim terrorist attack.
Boy in Jackson Heights, or the first-time voter in Parkchester, that they too should remain in the shadows. I am becoming that same uncle who took me aside. No more. The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker.
Yeah, that and conquering the Western world. Yeah, it's just being treated like every other New Yorker and also conquering the West. It's those two dreams, but they're very similar.
And yet for too long we have been told to ask for less than that and to be satisfied with whatever little we receive. No more. For as long as we have lived, we have known that no matter what anyone says, there are still certain forms of hate acceptable in this city today.
Yeah.
Islamophobia
Mostly against Jews in New York, to be honest, if you actually look at the stats.
is not seen as inexcusable.
Islamophobia is a fake word. I'm not trying to be controversial here, but Islamophobia is not a real word.
One can incite violence against our mosques and know that condemnation will never come.
It should. If someone incites violence against mosques, then they should go to jail. I am absolutely super against that completely. Every single hate crime perpetrated against Muslims or threats of violence or incitement of violence against Muslims should absolutely be upheld to the absolute extent of the law. 1,000%. However, every hate crime perpetrated by Muslims and threats and incitement of violence perpetrated by Muslims should also be perpetrated by the full extent of the law. Which means every single person that says globalize the Intifada, which is basically a chant to go stab Jews around the world, those guys should all be in jail. But you support that. That's why this is such an obvious double standard. He'll be like, some people will say burning mosques is not a good thing and stuff like that. And then you have him literally on the same side saying, I'm not going to condemn globalizing the Intifada.
Elected officials in this city can sell t-shirts calling for my deportation without fear of any accountability.
Why should anyone fear accountability for freedom of speech? Calling for your deportation is just based, bro. That's just based. What are you talking about? Are you insane? Well, what are you saying? Absolutely, I think you should get deported. No, without a shadow of a doubt. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. Well, why is that incitement of violence? He wants me to go to jail for thinking that this dude should get deported. He's literally trying to silence your speech when it's against Muslims. I could think of a place where it's like that. London, where they literally arrest people for posting memes that are Islamophobic.
The consequences are stark. More than 1 million Muslim New Yorkers exist in this city.
Soon to be double that. Pay attention.
Only to be made to feel as if guests in our own home.
A lot of you are. Not trying to be controversial, but a lot of you are guests. Yeah. You don't act that way sometimes, but a lot of you are.
No more. We stand on the precipice of an election, but that is not what today is about.
It literally is. That's why you're posting it today.
We know that in less than 2 weeks, we will say goodbye to a disgraced former governor and our current indicted mayor. The bigger question is whether we are willing to say goodbye to something much larger. It is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment.
My guy, you are going to increase anti-Muslim sentiment 100-fold. 100-fold. And the only reason why you're doing it is because you're hoping to import enough Muslims to outvote everybody else.
That has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the words were said by a Republican or by a Democrat. We know only that it was spoken in the language of the politics of this city. In an era of ever-diminishing bipartisanship, Islamophobia has emerged as one of the few areas of agreement.
People all around the world condemning terrorists. What a horrible world that we live in.
And while I appreciate all...
Not to say that all Muslims are terrorists, obviously. But he uses Islamophobia as condemning terrorists. That's the reason why, like, this guy fucking sucks. All right, he'll say that it's Islamophobic to say that 9/11 was a tragedy because 3,000 Americans were killed. All right, and if you don't mention his aunt, then you're Islamophobic.
All who have rushed to my defense over the past 2 days. I think of those Muslims in this city who do not have the luxury of being the Democratic nominee, who do not have the luxury of being deemed worthy of solidarity. While my opponents in this race have brought this hatred to the forefront.
No, I think that was you when you refused to condemn globalizing the Intifada or, condemned 9/11 because it offended your aunt.
This is just a glimpse into what so many Muslims have had to endure every day across the 5 boroughs that we call home. And while it would be easy to say that this is not who we are as a city, we know the truth. This is who we have allowed ourselves to become.
He's literally giving a Muslims Rise Up speech right before he gets elected and imports more Muslims. This is wild, dude.
A question lies
God.
before each of us. Will we continue to accept a narrow definition of what it means to be a New Yorker that makes smaller the number of those guaranteed a life of dignity? Will we remain in the shadows, or will we together step into the light?
They literally take over Times Square like 5 times a year. Like, what are we even talking about?
There are 11 days remaining until Election Day.
I thought this wasn't about the election.
I will be a Muslim man in New York City each of those 11 days.
Yep,
and
we know.
every day that follows after that.
Yep.
I will not change who I am. I will not change how I eat. I will not change the faith that I am proud to belong to. But there is one thing I will change. I will no longer look for myself in the shadows. I will find myself in the light. Thank you.
Yeah, we know. That's why there are giant gatherings of people blasting calls to prayer in the middle of cities in America, all right? Muslims aren't living in the shadows in America. That's literally fucking fake news. I don't even know why we need to play this game. It is unbelievable fake news. It's not true. Anyway, moving on, because I feel like this is an interesting topic. Never forget, Mamdani's aunt was uncomfortable on the subway after this happened. Never forget, guys. Literally, don't you dare forget about Mamdani's aunt. So, he makes this whole thing, a video to every Muslim or whatever in New York, obviously. Mamdani appears smiling, arm in arm with the unindicted 93 World Trade Center bombing co-conspirator and terrorist apologist. Zohran Mamdani gleefully campaigned this week with a notorious gay-hating Brooklyn imam who is a unindicted co-conspirator in 1993 World Trade Center bombing who has been linked to other terrorist activity in the United States, including urging jihad on the Big Apple. Wow! It must be just because she's Muslim or brown. It's because she's brown, guys! It's just because she's brown. That's why they're criticizing him. It's because of his brownness. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's because of how brown he is. It's not at all because he's literally chilling with terrorists. It's not the terrorist chilling. It's not the terrorist chilling at all, actually. All right, let's make this very clear. It's not the terrorist chilling. It's the fact that he's brown. This is retard, libtard mindset, and it works on way too many of these fuckers. So, Sean said, and Sean's based as fuck. Sean said, he is actual justice warrior on YouTube. I told you he would follow the Sadiq Khan playbook. That's the London mayor. Start as a progressive, then suddenly everything becomes about Muslim. All critiques are Islamophobia. 100%. This is why it should be illegal for Muslims to hold office in America. Oh my god. Anyway. So, anywho, this is diabolical. This is absolutely diabolical in every possible way. In every possible way, bro. This is insane. This is crazy. So yeah, no, but it's obviously that's his strategy. It's becoming more and more obvious. So this is a clip of Zoran Mamdani's father. All right, let's see what created Zoran Mamdani.
America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories.
This is 2022, by the way. All right, Abraham Lincoln was bad.
For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is
According to Zoran Mamdani's father, Abraham Lincoln was the prime inspiration for Adolf Hitler. You heard correctly.
possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people.
Yes, because obviously Native American reservations are exactly the same as massacring Jews, obviously.
Nuremberg laws were patterned after American.
And I love how he's like, yes, Hitler learned genocide from Lincoln, failing to mention the dozens, if not hundreds, of Islamic genocides that have been perpetrated over the last couple centuries. Like, it's wild to even think about this. Like, dude, every Muslim country's done a genocide. Like, what are you talking about? You insane? Like, are you crazy? It's infinite. It's crazy that we're doing this.
Anyway, the U.S. put Indians in reservations. The U.S. invented the model.
Right, so according to him, the U.S. inspired the Holocaust. Yep, it's the U.S. and every bad thing that ever happened came from America. And this is the dad of Zoran, who obviously fucking hates America. Like, you know, he basically says every time, you know, he says that 9/11 was bad because it inspired Islamophobia, obviously. Of course, you have the people battling against this train of thought. Never forget, early voting begins today. Vote Andrew Cuomo, save our city. And this guy says you don't actually care about 9/11 at all if you're using photos of victims like this. Excuse me. You are literally part of the Free Palestine movement. Are you retarded? Like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. This is insane. Bro! You don't care about 9/11 if you're using photos of victims. Anyway, let me show you some pictures of starving children from Gaza or whatever to push my agenda. Dude, this is crazy. They're all like this. They're all like this, man. Every single one of them. Abraham Lincoln caused 9/11. Are we sure this guy didn't survive? Yeah, largest brain left over. All right. Anyway, it keeps getting worse. So I already showed you this clip. This is Zoran Mamdani praising Al-Awlaki, who was literally a terrorist, and constantly glazing that guy. Interesting. Now, so this guy, Niqab Nancy, I'm pretty sure this is a parody account. Harvard student, pregnant, journalist, anti-dolphin, Palestinian. I'm pretty sure that this is a parody account. Islamophobia is a major problem in the U.S. As you can see, anti-Islamic hate crimes in the U.S. in 2022 was 158, which you probably won't be able to notice because of the 1,122 anti-Jewish hate crimes that were done in the United States during 2022. Yeah, so as you can see, Islamophobia is a big issue, all right? Even though there's more anti-Christian hate crimes than anti-Muslim hate crimes, by the way, right? If you look anti-Catholic, anti-other Christian, and anti-Eastern Orthodox, anti-Protestant, you combine all that, there's more, right? There's more anti-Christian hate crimes, there's more anti-Sikh hate crimes. In fact, and there's, you know, literally almost 10 times the anti-Jew hate crimes. So, are you insane? And also, let me just say this. Who do you think is doing a lot of the anti-Jew hate crimes? Like, what are you doing? So anyway, when you go out there and scream about Islamophobia and being afraid and living in the shadows, you are a fucking delusional whore. It's insane. Sir, Zoran's aunt doesn't feel safe taking the subway in her hijab. Sir, Zoran's aunt does not feel safe in the subway. This is diabolical. So much Islamophobia. All right, so anyway, so this is Zoran Mamdani's tip on how to make buses safer in New York.
You have a fare box on a bus, it increases a site of tension, of conflict, of assaults. When you remove that fare box, rather, what you find is a safer experience, not just for the riders, but also for the operators.
He thinks if you make buses free, it'll make the people that would beat up bus drivers because they don't have the money stop beating up bus drivers. He's literally turning his fucking country into a hell. He's turning the city into a hellscape, man. Now, if you want to look at the stats, because I wanted to show you that the stats are insane. Jew-on-Jew violence? Yeah, I don't think so. So if you want to look at some stats, because this has been going a little bit viral, so I wanted to talk about some interesting information. When you look at different crime statistics, note that they're skewed, right? So this guy over here, this dude over here, James Boyd is registered as a white man. McConnell Edward, registered as a white man. Ellison Joe Marvin, registered as a white man. You got this guy, white man, registered as a white man, registered as a white man, registered as a white man. These are all registered as white men in the actual crime database. Now, I don't want to come off as racism or something. I don't want to do a racism, okay? These gentlemen be black. Not trying to stir the pot or anything, but they are some very, very tanned white men, if you know what I'm saying. So this is insane, right? So they will literally contort and manipulate the statistics in order to come up with how they're actually victims of shit. Now, this is Zoran Mamdani's intern. Let's see what she has to say. And white people are calling him a terrorist supporter. It's probably just because he's brown.
And the true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
I'm gonna jihad if all I want.
It's about time to do that. And I know everybody has their own families and has an education and everything.
Right.
It's just a question. We don't want to get doxxed and we don't want to get suspended and we don't want to get arrested. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause?
The noble cause is stabbing people, by the way.
I truly believe that when your heart is in the right place, if you get suspended, if you get doxxed, because it's bound to happen when you're doing a righteous cause and when you're doing something for the sake of Allah,
a jihad,
it will never ever be in vain. And the true believer does not fear that, because the true believer knows that is a promise.
Right, so the true believer knows the reality that if you do jihad in public for Allah, obviously you will be treated well in heaven. So it's kind of worth being a gangsta down here in the corporeal realm, because Allah is going to treat you well. Now, this isn't a random Muslim lady. This is literally Zoran Mamdani's intern. Zoran Mamdani's intern. Bro, deport. She's literally calling for a holy war and martyrdom in the streets of America. What are we doing? Oh my God. So anyway, realistically, I feel like when people call Zoran Mamdani a terrorist supporter, it's because he's a fucking terrorist supporter, man. It's because he is. This guy falling from the Twin Towers. The real victim here is Zoran Mamdani's aunt. The falling man is exhibiting the proper respect for Zoran Mamdani's aunt. He does not wish to be Islamophobic, rightly so. This is what is this timeline, man? What is this timeline? And here's Only Hands. Zoran Mamdani eating rice with his bare hands. Classic. We love that. Anyway, that's normal what people do in civilized society. But before your deranged leftist retard decides to comment on this video, but we eat burgers with our bare hands, I proceed to ask you in advance to fuck yourself. Moving on, because it gets worse. Right, so there are more of these stats, right? So these people are all obviously white, and obviously, if you look at the database, obviously white. More white people. Look at all these white people. Dominez, Toto, Yanko, Gabriel, Lopez de Jesus, Francisco, Ruiz, Martin, Santis, and Flores, Gurola, Jorge, Alberto are just 4 white men doing what white people do, I guess. Classic white people move, you know what I'm saying? Now, anyway, let's actually do some look at statistics, because people don't like stats. NYPD classified murder-homicide as hate crime cases in New York City with a Muslim victim by year. 0 since 2000, for the record. So when we're talking about Muslims being scared to move into the light, and sitting in the darkness and scared to move into the light, there have been, thank God, because I don't want any of these murder, homicide, hate crimes against Muslims. Thank God, no one died, but no one died. You are literally yelling Islamophobia for no reason. This is not a real thing. You are fighting a fake cause, and people are falling for it, man. People are falling for it. So this guy says, my aunt had a very similar story. She stopped taking the subway after 9/11 because 2 Muslims flew a plane into her office and killed her. Oh my God, dude. Like, yes, which is a much more important traumatizing thing. This is crazy, man. Like, people are really starting to wake up to how fucking insane this is. People are starting to be like, yeah, this guy sucks. So this over here is Hot Girls for Zoran. She is running a movement for Zoran. Yeah, and she also has an old post where she says, from the U.S. to Palestine, abolish the settler state. Every Zoran supporter hates America. They all hate America, bro. Every single one of them hates America. It's crazy. It's absolutely diabolical. Why are we letting people into our country that hate us? Why? Whores for Palestine. Truly the greatest creation of all time. It's insane. No, but like, look at how it's written from the U.S. to Palestine. It's like no one fucking cares about any of the movements that they fight for. They just hate America. They made it their entire personality because they can't connect to God or feel any better. Like, it's crazy because the whore side of the terrorist movement, like those guys They don't believe in God. They have a void in their heart, a hole in their heart that they're trying to fill. They couldn't fill that hole with God, and they couldn't fill that hole with dad. So now they're finding other things to fill their holes. It's tragic. And they're making believe that this is a cause now that they need to fight for in order to feel spiritual and better about themselves, when in reality, they're just sad and miserable. Zoran Mamdani, I never said I wanted to defund the police. He recently said that in a speech. But you look at his old tweets, defund the haram police. Defund it, dismantle it, end the cycle of violence, defund the police, build a socialist New York. Queer liberation means defund the police. No, we want to defund the police. And infinite tweets talking about defunding the police. And now he's claiming he never wanted to defund the police. It's almost like he's a liar or something. That's crazy. So anyway, like, Mamdani lied on his immigration paperwork apparently. And this is him literally celebrating with a terrorist. Deport! Deport! This guy says, I fully support deporting Zoran Mamdani. I'm tired of pretending citizenship is a right for foreigners. He's not assimilated into our culture, not with his habits, not with his religion, not with his ideology. The federal government should be able to strip citizenship for these reasons. And I don't care if people view this as authoritarian. Plus, not to mention the arguments that Mamdani, who has aligned himself with Islamic terror, has violations that with his citizenship forms and application process. I want a nation, not whatever this is. Founding fathers are rolling in their graves because someone as problematic as this is able to get this close to controlling the nation's top city. Realistically, deport! Deport, bro! Deport! He lied on his paperwork. He's chilling with terrorists. Get him out! Get him out! I don't know why. He's a communist too! Get him out! No, dude, anyway, anywho, we'll see what happens. But obviously, people are losing their mind over all of this. People are going crazy. I think my guess is Trump is not going to be, not going to have the balls to actually deport him because he knows the backlash that's going to happen. But, like, democracy is when you literally import people that want to kill us, and now that we have enough people that want to kill us in our same place, they can all vote. It's like we're importing our death, and there's nothing we can do about it because they don't let you deport terrorists or people that support terrorists or people that don't want to integrate in society. Look, I don't even blame. Look, if he wants to be a Muslim or whatever, that's totally fine. Okay, that's totally fine, I guess. But don't be a terrorist, man. Stop glazing terrorists. What are you doing? Like, you hate America. You shouldn't be here. It's that easy. It's that simple, actually. Go back to wherever you came from. Sudan. I don't know where you came from. Anyway, if you look at the lore, Sean King says, to be a Muslim and win as mayor of New York City, you basically have to be the single most gifted politician of this generation. Well, yeah, a great liar. Thanks for noticing. Are you ready? Are you ready to lose your mind? Look at the next tweet that I had saved. Check this shit out. This is going to make you lose your mind. Or you could just import a new electorate and win. Zoran Mamdani, most popular with foreign-born New Yorkers. But Cuomo is the favorite with homegrown voters. And at this point, the foreigner vote is literally bigger than the homegrown vote. And that is why Zoran Mamdani is winning. Because despite the fact that Cuomo has 60% of the homegrown vote, Zoran Mamdani has 80% of the foreigner vote. It's almost like they literally imported a population of third world voters and they are voting for a third world terrorist supporter. And it's working, and there's nothing we can do about it because they found the loophole in democracy. The loophole is they can manipulate the shit out of us. Mamdani admits his goal is for New York City as a Muslim takeover of New York. Check this out.
Under law, there are 1 million Muslims in this city. 200,000 of us are registered to vote as Democrats. In the last election, only 7% of us voted. Now, I will not blame anyone because often it feels like there isn't much to vote for. But this June 24th, with early voting starting tomorrow, it is an opportunity. An opportunity for us to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. Because yesterday I stood on the debate and Andrew Cuomo stood next to me. And here was a man who was the governor for a decade and he could not name a single mosque he had ever visited.
Literally, who cares? Literally, who cares? He's basically saying, all right, Muslims, if someone refuses to kiss our toes, we should never vote for them. All right, Muslims, let's gather together and make sure that anyone who doesn't literally glaze us has no chance.
He could not name it because he does not care.
Yes, and why should he care? Why should he care? I don't understand. Why should we be forcing mayoral candidates to care and visit holy sites of other religions? I don't know. Why should he care? Quite frankly, he shouldn't care. Anyway, this is Calla Walsh. This is another one of those epic gangster journalists writing about the repression and resistance. And a big Zoran Mamdani fan.
Like, we should be asking ourselves why there weren't 100 more Elias Rodriguez's. Why?
Elias Rodriguez, for the record, is the guy in Washington, D.C. that murdered 2 Israeli Christians. Murdered them in cold blood in the street at a Holocaust memorial. And he's a terrorist and he's in jail now. Anyway, that's Elias Rodriguez, and she's saying there should be more of them.
There weren't 10 of us able to evacuate him and to take out more Zionist diplomats. And I think the response we saw from people in the region and in the axis of resistance countries shows the importance of his action. You know, on Iranian TV, we hear newscasters saying that Yahya Sinwars are being born in the United States, and that this
Yahya Sinwar is the terrorist that caused the October 7th massacre in Israel and started the entire Gaza war. And all the blood of all the Palestinians that died that she claims to care about is on the hands of Hamas, who started the war.
was a martyrdom operation. Khalid Barakat.
Martyrdom operation. The plan was for them all to die. Do you understand? The plan was for them all to die to destroy the West.
Wrote an amazing article contextualizing Elias's actions in the history of external operations in the Palestinian Revolution, and that the Zionists and imperialists have made the entire world a battlefield, and therefore, like, we have to be behind enemy lines everywhere.
No, Hamas started a war and they lost miserably. This is not the Zionists making the world a battlefield, so now you have to start randomly executing Jews or Christians or Israelis in Washington, D.C.
And that resistance,
liberal white women, ladies and gentlemen,
anywhere on this world, in this world, is justified and necessary.
Yeah, so I think she needs to go to jail. I don't know why she's not in jail. I don't know why we're not taking this seriously.
And you don't have to go to Palestine to take part in resistance. If you live in the U.S., you can do it right there, and that's
I don't think anyone should be doing resistance anywhere, because I think her version of resistance is stab and kill random people.
What Elias did.
Yeah, so Elias Rodriguez, again, the guy that's part of the Democrat Socialist Party, for the record, in case you were curious, murders two random Israeli guys in Washington, D.C. as resistance, and actual terrorist, and she's actually just sitting here glazing him, saying there should be more of him. I don't know why he's not in jail. Like, openly calling for Jews to be murdered. Or not just Jews, any Zionist. For the record, anyone that thinks Israel has the right to exist as a country is a Zionist, right? So any Christian that thinks Israel should be able to exist, that's a Zionist, and she supports the murder of all of them. She wants worldwide, global, just murdering random people because of resistance. Nebulous resistance. Trump is a Zionist, so we have to kill Trump now, according to her, right? So again, this is a big Zoran Mamdani fangirl who's literally out here going on podcasts, a direct call to violence, and and they get away with this! And they get away with this. Now, I want to show you some immigration stories perpetrated by one of the most peaceful religions of all time, because I don't want New York to turn into Neo-London, which it looks like it probably will. Let's read this article. This came out yesterday. Dad dies of grief after daughter 12 raped and beheaded by illegal immigrant. This happened yesterday. What do you mean dies of grief, bro? Dies of grief? Bro, what a nightmare that we have to live like. We don't have to live like this, man. We don't have to live like this. This is a story that went viral over the weekend, so I wanted to talk about it. These are the stats. I'll show this to you in a minute. But these are the stats. This is a story that happened over the weekend. This poor girl, man. I talked about this in a previous video, but there's more lore about it now, so I wanted to bring it up again. A Swedish court has ruled that the Enma migrant who raped a 16-year-old Maya Aberg won't be deported because the rape didn't last long enough. The rape took place on September 1st last year when Maya missed her bus and was walking through a pedestrian tunnel after she finished her shift at McDonald's. Maya and her family immediately reported to the police. The 18-year-old Eritrean migrant named Yazied Mohammed, probably a Zionist, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for rape. Mohammed is a citizen of Eritrea, and the prosecutors sought his deportation. However, the Court of Appeal noted that this man has refugee status. Not even a citizen! Not even a citizen! Just a refugee. Under Swedish law, deporting a refugee requires that the crime committed constitutes as a serious offense. This isn't, apparently. And that allowing them to remain in Sweden would pose a serious threat to public order and safety. The rape of the 16-year-old Maya did not deem serious enough to justify the deportation, with the Court of Appeal citing, among other factors, the duration of the rape in its assessment. Let's be real here. You don't think this is going to happen in New York now? You don't think this shit is going to start happening in New York? Are you insane? Of course it will. This is a pro-immigration, pro-terrorism guy. What are we talking about? Rape is, in many cases, considered an exceptionally serious offense. Yeah, you don't say. That could lead to the deportation of a refugee, but an assessment must be made based on all circumstances of the individual case. No, it literally doesn't. It literally doesn't. Get him out. Literally get him out. Well, what is happening? Given the nature and duration of the offense in question, the Court of Appeal finds while the crime is serious, it does not constitute an exceptionally serious offense that would warrant a deportation order for Yazied Mohammed, probably a Zionist. The request for deportation is therefore rejected. The Court of Appeal of Upper Norland wrote in its ruling. This poor girl, unbelievable. So I made a tweet. Covering this. Well, I'll show you I made a tweet covering this, and my tweet went a little bit viral. Got a lot of people calling me Islamophobic for this one, but that's okay because that's not a real word. Islamophobia is not a real word. Definitely follow me on Twitter for more epic hot takes. The rape didn't last long enough. It's Islamophobic to mention the rapist is an immigrant named Mohammed. The rape didn't last long enough. It's fascist to want to deport people from our countries that are unwilling to integrate into civil society. The rape didn't last long enough. It's misogynistic to notice that the feminist empathy is the voter base for that powers the mass migration. The rape didn't last long enough. It's authoritarianism to want judges making judgment calls like this to be held accountable. The rape didn't last long enough. It's racist to hold criminals accountable to the full extent of the law. The rape didn't last long enough. Tolerance isn't a virtue. Intolerance is a virtue. We cannot tolerate this shit anymore, man. We absolutely can't. We absolutely can't. So, obviously, due to tweets like mine and other people that kind of went viral talking about this entire situation, the judge responded. The Swedish judge who ruled that the Assyrian migrant who raped the 16-year-old Maya Aberg won't be deported after serving a 3-year sentence because the rape didn't last long enough has spoken out about the criticism and say judges can't take into consideration people's anger. That's right. I am apparently an overly angry, emotional bitch for thinking that raping women is a bad thing. Raping children, especially. The decision not to report Yazid Mohammed sparked global outrage. The Court of Appeals Judge Lars Victorson tells whatever about the 19-year-old Adrian shouldn't be deported. It was a short-lived incident. He tells Samnit he remains unfazed by the storm of criticism. I don't think about it at all. We judge. We have our tasks. We judge. We cannot take into account what different people think or whether they get upset. That's right. You're just upset. We can't follow the winds, trends blowing in society. Whether we hear one thing or another, we go in and evaluate based on the legislation and precedent that exists and judge accordingly. One particular phrasing in the verdict has garnered so much attention that has been translated into other languages and spread internationally. Given the nature and duration of the act in question, the Court of Appeal finds that the crime is indeed a serious act, but not as especially grave nature as to warrant a decision to deport Yazid Mohammed, probably a Zionist. The judge explains, it's not about him holding her, groping her buttocks and breasts, kissing her against her will, persistently touching and penetrating her genitals with his fingers. None of that matters! Furthermore, Judge Lars Victorson argues that the rape did not last particularly long. Normally, a rape is considered an especially serious crime that can lead to deportation, but an overall assessment must still be made. And in this case, we came to the conclusion that it didn't quite reach that level, he says. It was a short-lived incident. It was a rape, of course. But he inserted his fingers into her, but not his penis. He didn't carry out vaginal intercourse with his penis. I think, therefore, the verdict is clear that it weighs the arguments for and against to ultimately decide whether it should lead to deportation or not. The newspaper asked the judge, how long does a rape need to last, given its sufficient persistent? Should it be 15 minutes, half an hour, several hours? The judge responds to the question is no particular time limit. It's impossible to say anything about that. It's not about duration. It's also about the method. We describe another rape case under knife threat. That wasn't the case here. No, there was no knife. There was no knife. So you can't say 12 minutes deportation, 8 minutes no deportation, or 3 minutes deportation, 15 seconds no deportation. It doesn't work like that. You have to make an assessment. There was no knife, guys. There was no knife. In addition to Lars Victorson, Court of Appeal Eldia Sungvist, Acting Court of Appeal Assessor and Rappaport, Hannah Hamrin, and lay judges, all these other judges ruled in the case. Sammy Lee from the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats Party was the only one who dissented and wanted Yazid to be Mohammed to be deported for life after serving his prison sentence. Only one Democrat, seemingly. This is Sweden, but this is coming to a New York City near you. All right, let's not forget, all right, what we're doing here. We are literally getting the #1 anti-prison, anti-deportation, pro-immigration guy in the world. Migrant men of non-European origin commit 84% of assault rapes in Sweden, despite only making less than 10% of the country's population. An Algerian migrant is 122 times more likely to commit aggravated rape than a Swede, and an Afghan is 69 times more likely than a Swede. People say that all cultures are equal. All cultures are not equal. All cultures aren't equal. Some cultures are worse. And clearly, in Algeria, rape is not a big deal. Or at least not even remotely as big of a deal as it is in Sweden. You know why? Because it happens 122 times the amount of rape is coming from Algerians than from Swedes. So, some cultures are in fact inferior. But don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys. A feminist told me we have to accept them or we're being Islamophobic. Well, I am done with the era of tolerance. Intolerance is a virtue. Intolerance is holy. Like, subscribe, and this video was streamed live on kick.com/Nuxanor. See you there. Stay weird, fam.